Welcome to the Thrive Podcast with the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church.
How does your faith kind of play into it, or does it play into it?
What can be done about it? When I say the church, I'm talking about evangelical white Christians and the black folk who attend their churches.
Hello, welcome to the Thrive Podcast with the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church. I'm Fred Jeff Smith, pastor of Shiloh, and I'm very happy that you're either viewing this on YouTube or listening to this on Spotify or iTunes. We always invite you to let us know how we're doing. You can reach out to me via email at fredjeffsmith@cox.net, fredjeffsmith@cox.net. Just drop us a note. Let us know what you enjoy and what you're not enjoying about the Thrive Podcast, and thank you again for your support and your participation. I'm very happy today to welcome Mr. Jordan Piazza to our Thrive Podcast. Mr. Piazza is a second-generation owner of Phil's Oyster Bar and is a graduate of LSU, is a native Baton Rougean. He's a businessman here in our community. He is a registered Republican, and he plans to run for mayor of East Baton Rouge Parish, Mayor President of East Baton Rouge Parish. Mr. Piazza, thank you for taking time to come share with us. Tell us your story. Who is Jordan Piazza?
It's a loaded question. No, like you said earlier, I'm born and raised in Baton Rouge, to a family of five. I'm the youngest of five. I have a twin sister. My dad owned Phil's Oyster Bar on Government Street, which was here for forever. It was there for 50 years. He owned it for 32 years. He bought it from a gentleman, Phil Tuminello, that originally owned it. Okay. So I grew up in the restaurant industry. Okay. I grew up in Baton Rouge with a real love for the city, which I think is probably normal when you're young. Mm-hmm. But as I got older, and I noticed the rest of my friends' love wasn't as strong as mine, it actually strengthened my love. And so I graduated at University High School on LSU's campus. Okay. And parishioner St. Aloysius Church here in town, where I grew up with my family. Okay. And my brother actually went to Catholic High, but the rest of us went to U High. And then I went on to LSU to pursue a degree in business management, and which agricultural business management actually, which was successful. And over the course of that time, my dad died. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2007. Yes, sir. He was diabetic, had a lot of health issues. So my whole life, I was around him and experiencing that. So it required me to take on more of a responsibility at a young age. Mm-hmm. I was always joked that I was 13 going on 30, because I was just mature for my age in some regards. Obviously, as you're still a kid, but I was always at the restaurant. I was passionate about it, and I lived there. I mean, I'd go to school and I'd go straight to the restaurant and wouldn't do my homework. I mean, it's just what I loved, and I think it's just part of being a people person. I love being around people, and I love getting to meet people and interacting rather than being a homebody. And so, as time went on and my dad passed away in 2007, we made the tough decision 5 months before he passed to close the restaurant. And when I went to LSU, I began working in Tigerland. I started as a general manager of a bar in Tigerland. And I did that for a couple of years, and then moved to another bar and did that as well. And then after I graduated, I went to work right before I graduated, I went to work for the guys that own Walk-On's Bistro, or Sports Bistro. Yeah. And so at that time, they had 11 locations, or they were growing to 11 locations in 3 cities. They had, I think, four Walk-Ons. They had an Irish pub, Happy's Irish Pub. They had 3 locations of those. They had 2 pizza concepts, and then they had another bar downtown. So I was their operations support manager, good friends with the guys that own it, and so I had a lot of valuable lessons learned there. I left there in 2014 and then joined Raising Cane's in 2015. Okay. And I started at Raising Cane's as a general manager at the restaurant on Corporate Boulevard. It's no longer there now. It closed because all that issues with the lease renewal.
I'm very disappointed in there, too, because that's close to where I live. Yeah.
And it's, I go there so often that I found myself driving there the other day, and I was like, oh, it's closed. Yeah. But now I just go to the one on Foster in Government. But I worked there for 6 months, and I realized that it was monotonous in terms of, it was just kind of the same routine day in and day out, and that wasn't great for my personality. So I reached out to Todd Graves, who owns Cane's, who's a friend, and we talked, and he brought me on as his business manager for him. So I went to work for the corporate office.
Okay.
And I did that for a few years, and it was a great experience. And over the course of that time, I had the opportunity to move to Dallas, where they have another office, a restaurant support office, and I declined that opportunity because one strict reason that I wanted to be in Baton Rouge. I knew that I was, no matter what presented itself, Baton Rouge was going to always be my home.
Okay.
And it's kind of interesting because as I've dated different women over the years, they've kind of all thought, well, is there anywhere else to go? And they knew with me that it wasn't an option. And so I'm passionate about Baton Rouge. I'm very protective of Baton Rouge. I love the city. And after working with Todd in 2016, my brother and I reopened the restaurant to honor my dad's legacy, and it's been great. And then in 2019, last year, Peter Sclafani, who's one of the founders of Ruffino's restaurant and the chef, he joined our team because he sold out of Ruffino's, and so now he's a partner with us.
Okay.
And that same year, my brother and I and some other friends bought Uncle Earl's Bar right down the street.
Yes.
And we opened that. And so I'm just rooted deep in Baton Rouge and trying to ground myself even more. Just got married in
Congratulations.
May. Thank you. Her name's Jordan as well.
Okay.
And a lot of people,
Jordan and George.
And then my best friend's named Jordan as well. And so it's the three Jordans, and it's pretty cool. And she's originally from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and so she likewise was kind of like, hey, is Arkansas an option? I was like, no, it's not for me. And so and I think it's just because I love Baton Rouge so much, and I think the city has so much to offer for so many, and it's got so many cool, unique history that we don't necessarily appreciate. And here I am today.
So, what would I be interested in learning about the restaurant business from someone who has seen it from the backside? I mean, typically, the person who walks into a restaurant, they walk in the front door, they wait to be seated, or they take a seat, and they want their food. They want it within a certain speed. They want it to taste a certain kind of way. If they get the service that they want, they get up and they leave. What are the things that we don't see that go on behind the scenes?
I think that's a great question because I think what's a misperception rather that a lot of people have is that it's a glamorous thing to own a restaurant. I've heard a lot, like Glenn Big Baby Davis, who's I went to high school with, a good friend of mine. He, from Baton Rouge, he wanted to open a restaurant. When he was in the league, and he came and talked to me. I was like, Glenn, save your money, man. And I can tell you why. And it's just. It's a lot of work that goes in a restaurant. I think it's one of the, personally, having worked it and worked other careers, I think it's one of the toughest industries out there because it's 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and as an owner, you have to watch everything because the margins aren't great. They can be good.
I was going to ask you, what's the typical profit margin?
Yeah, on a restaurant, I would say probably 10 to 15%.
Okay.
Which seems good, but it depends on your price point. Like if you're fine dining, it's obviously higher, but your food cost is also going to be higher too. But there's greater opportunity to sell alcoholic beverages at fine dining restaurants, which has a much higher profit margin. But at a restaurant, you have to really put forth effort to get 10 to 15%. And not that it's not, anything you do, I think you should work hard to get a profit, but a lot of people see, they come in on your busy, to your point, you come in on a busy night, on a Friday night, and you see that the restaurant is full. Oh, man, you're making a bunch of money. It's like, well, come on Monday night when there's no one in here.
Right.
And let's talk about it then,
Right.
And that's what is tough that I think people don't see is, it's great, a lot of famous people come in and out, a lot of, politicians, the who's who will come in and out. That's all fun. That's the glamour everyone sees. But the work that it takes, when you're dealing with, everyone has a different, taste palette. So what we think is great, not everyone necessarily will think is great.
Right.
So some of our best dishes that get amazing reviews, another customer will say it's horrible. And we have to respect that because in their opinion, it is bad.
Right.
And so the challenge is that for us is, service is everything. And one thing I always preach in pre-shifts is, you have to smile. Smile is contagious because if you're not smiling, then the customer's going to feel that energy, and that whatever energy the server has is how their experience is going to be overall. And with that being said, if a server comes in on a bad day or has something going on personally and they can't leave it at home, it interferes with work. And so we're an industry that depends, just like many industries, obviously, but we depend heavily on people, and people aren't reliable, unfortunately. The ones that are taking our career, rather, because it's not a salary position; it's an hourly job, and they're taking a risk too. They don't know if we're going to be busy that day, so So they might make tips, they might not make tips. And then in the back of house, the kitchen and that staff, they might have things going on, and the challenge we face is transportation is an issue, and so it makes it difficult for them to get to work. And so what I find, to answer your question on the back end, is there's a lot more work that goes into it to actually just open the doors. I mean, it's going in early, making sure everything's ready, and then when people are late, it's calling them and going to pick them up. I mean, literally going to pick people up, and because they're key to your success. I mean, one person can really mess you up, and so there's a lot of work that goes into it, and it can be thankless. No one's saying, "Hey, thank you for this great meal," because that's what the expectation is. They come in and they have a great meal. That's what you're here to do. And so they're not they're not thanking us. We're thanking them.
So guys don't get up and leave and say thank you so much for.
No, it's us saying thank you.
Really?
I mean, occasionally, they'll say thank you back, but we're thanking them because there's hundreds of restaurants in the Baton Rouge community you can eat at. Thank you for choosing us, and and I try and find out why did you choose us. And then the tough part, going further with that, is that, and I'm great at this because I'll give you an example. California Pizza Kitchen, they have a salad that I love. I go just for that salad every single time. That's all I'm getting. I know before I go there what I'm getting. Yeah. That's how people are. We're a creature of habit. So when people come that have been here before, most of the time they're going to get the same, either one item or maybe they try a different. Yeah. But they expect it to taste the same every single time. Sure. And if it doesn't, that's a problem. Sure. And so consistency is an issue in the restaurant business, especially a small restaurant like us that doesn't have mass volume to produce with a commissary. We have franchising restaurants can produce with a commissary where someone off-site makes the recipes and ships it in, and it guarantees consistency. But someone in a small restaurant like us, the volume you have to do in order to really justify doing that is pretty significant. And
so when a chef leaves and a new chef comes in, is the new chef does he have the latitude to tweak the menu,
the recipe?
The recipe?
Yeah.
Or do you have a book that says it has to be done this way? 2 teaspoons of this, one tablespoon of that. How does that work?
And that's a great question. So with my dad, how he got successful when he took over Phil's, his family was involved. His dad and primarily his mom, and who was in New Orleans at the time, who would cook stuff on Sunday and take the bus from New Orleans and bring it in. And this is in the late 70s, early 80s, but bring it in over the and have it to serve at the restaurant. And I say that because his sister took over that role too as time went on, and she ran the restaurant. And we have a set of family recipes that I call the non-negotiables. So you can't touch those recipes. And every chef. And look, they have great credentials, and I'm not saying you can't make a great red sauce, but don't touch my mama's gravy, because there's plenty of people that come here just for mama's spaghetti and meatballs. Yeah. And so to answer your question, what we try and do with chefs that come in, it's like, hey, here are the items that we're not going to touch because it's proven that it works from the first generation with my dad and still here today. Same recipe, they're great. But anything else, have at it. Show us what you're great at. Show us some specials. That's where chefs. What I've learned in my experience, chefs like to create specials. They like to do something that's different and put their name on it and their touch on it, because those key items, they don't want to mess with the batter for a fried shrimp poi. That doesn't intrigue them. But they'll want to mess with a fish dish with certain type of sides and all, and get creative. And that's great, because usually they can call it's a challenge to them, because they got to create the dish, they got to cost it out, price it, but also make it where it's intriguing to the customer to buy. And so to answer your question, we have some items that, hey, you can't touch. But when Peter came in, he thought, hey, the items you don't want me to touch, I agree with. They're great. And then he came in and took the items that we knew we weren't great at and made them better. And so before that, though, that was a challenge that my dad experienced and we experienced initially, because every chef wants to do it their way. Right. And it goes back to the consistency issue that I was talking about with customers. They came in and they had something, they wanted it the same way. They didn't care. They don't care who the chef is. They don't care who's back there cooking. They came to Phil's. They had a dish. They want it that way. And we had a struggle over the years in the past when items would change. The crawfish etouffee would be tweaked a little. Right. And so finally, that's when my brother and I said, okay, hey, these are the non-negotiables. Here are the recipes, the Phil's recipes that are locked in. Right. And there's about 8 to 10 of those. Right. And then everything else, the chef, it's at his discretion. Okay. But now that we have Peter, who's a chef and a partner, it's good because he's locking them in. It's like, hey, we added these and changed these, but these are locked in now because I'm also a partner. So he's a partner, and they're great recipes. Okay. So when you open up
for dinner? I mean, I'm not sure what your hours are. I've ordered from you guys before. Love your food.
Thank you.
But guy comes in at 8 o'clock in the morning to prepare for the night. How does he pre-prepare certain dishes? Are there 30 dishes sitting there waiting so that when I come in and order X, you've already got one waiting, or is it prepared when I order?
It's cooked to order, for sure.
Okay.
And that's something that I learned at Cane's. You know, when I was at Raising Cane's, I mean, Todd did a phenomenal job in his systems and processes of cooking to order, especially with chicken, because you have, you know, a very limited amount of time that it can sit before it goes bad.
Right.
And they were very strict on that. And so that's something that I learned, because to your point, when you know you're going to be busy, it's like, well, why not pre-make some of this? And we definitely do cook to order. Now, I'm not saying that we won't, like, Wednesdays are hamburger steak special. We know we're going to have, you know, we can look at the average and see how many we have. We might get the roll of meat and get it ready, but we're not pre-cooking anything.
Gotcha.
Because the quality's not there, you know, and that's why we don't pre-cook anything or pre-prepare it. But we will set ourselves up. The guy will come in and say, okay, hey, I need to make sure I have 30 balls rolled because I know I'm going to get 30 hamburger steak orders, and let me make sure I have enough green beans cooked and enough potatoes and all that, so that when I do get this rush, all this is throwing it down, letting it cook, and then plating it. And so, but as far as pre-preparing dishes, that's not something that we do.
Tell me this. How did you make the decision that you wanted to be a Republican as opposed to an independent or a Democrat? What led you to a Republican perspective on things?
I think, you know, it took time, for sure, you know, because my grandfather, my mom's side, you know, my dad's parents, were deceased when I was young, so I didn't get to know him. But my mom's dad was very private about politics. You could not talk politics with him. And after his death, I've learned out he was a very big Democrat, but he did not like talk. You know, a lot of the older generation didn't talk that. It was very private, and I respect that, obviously, and I respect that today. But as a kid, I didn't know. Well, hey, you know, where am I going, Dad, Mom? What, you know, where are y'all's values? And they didn't really give me guidance. You know, it's kind of like, hey, that's something you got to determine on your own. And so I voted Democratic, I voted for Sharon Broome, who's a Democrat. I voted for Kip Holden every time he ran. My dad supported Kip. I voted for Barack Obama. I always find myself voting for the best candidate. I like to look at a candidate in any race and see what their values are, not just with their party, because I think the party values have just gotten so out of hand where they try and say, hey, if you're a Democrat or a Republican, these are your guidelines. But the reality is you got to look at a person's heart. And you can still be a Republican or Democrat and have some great core values, but doesn't mean you have to do everything that party thinks you should do. And so it came down to your point where, you know, you have to register. And so in East Baton Rouge, you know, and even, I could have registered as independent. However, I can't win an election as an independent. And so
politics was running for office was always in the back of your mind?
It was actually never in the back of my mind. It just, here recently, you know, every time I moved, you know, because I bought a house, sold a house, bought a house, and so you re-register in that district. And so it kind of stuck in my mind, well, I need to pick a party because, you know, that's also what's on your ballot for the presidential race. And so I kind of looked at the core values, and I said, you know, I'm conservative, you know, fiscally conservative, and you know, I kind of align with some of the ideals of Republicans, but not all of them. And at the end of the day, it's not going to stop me from voting who I want to vote for. But I think when I looked at the two, I just said, hey, I think Republicans more where I'm gonna fit best. And then here recently is when when I was considering a run, I had to decide, well, do I want to do Democrat? And I was like, well, that's not a good look to switch from Republican to Democrat. But I thought about switching to independent because I thought, you know, hey, there's a chance there. But then the reality is in Baton Rouge, an independent can't win at this time. And hopefully one day parties don't matter. But today, that it does matter. And so I chose the Republicans simply because I felt like when putting on paper, looking at their values, I felt like I aligned more with some of their values. But it doesn't mean that I align with every Republican's value. And that's why I pointed out that, last election I voted for, I met with Bodie White, who was running as a Republican. I met with Sharon Rustin Broome, and I voted and supported Sharon. Same with Kip every year, voted for him because I thought he did a great job. And didn't matter. I hate the title per se, and I like to look past it because I think sometimes it unfortunately deters votes away from people that might not be fair and just, because just because I'm a Republican doesn't mean that a Democrat can't support me, or that I don't have a lot of the same values that a Democrat has. I have to. We've created a system where you have to pick one or the other.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and so that's kind of where I've aligned myself.
Well, what do you think? What do you think the typical person's perception is when they hear Mr. Piazza is a Republican? Do they hear Mr. Piazza, or do they hear Republican?
They absolutely hear Republican. Absolutely.
Okay. So, and I would agree with that. So, what do you think the typical perception is of a Republican in the year 2020?
I think, that's, Donald Trump has made that more interesting for sure. But I think, typical perception of a Republican today is very pro-business, very, obviously anti-Democrat. But, to being candid, I think it's, most of their supporters are Caucasian or white people. And so I think a lot of the perception today is that, hey, this is, if he's Republican, he's pro-business, he's pro causes that, a lot of Caucasians support, maybe anti movement causes, that a lot of the Democratic Party support that are, the justices and all, things along the movements that a lot of people have had, that the Democrats are more freely, it's kind of twisted question, because I think the Republican Party, it has to identify with the president because he's Republican, and so a lot of his decisions and beliefs.
Do they have to identify with the president?
Well, let me rephrase that. They don't have to, but I think they have. In terms of he's, they want a Republican in the House.
President.
And he's
right.
the president, and he's going to be on the ballot again.
And I respect the fact that he's the president, but I don't believe that every Republican has to line up lockstep with the president any more than I think every Democrat has to line up with the leading Democrat. I agree with you that we're not monolithic. We have differences of opinion. And so I get concerned that when you say Republican or Democrat, the typical person walks away thinking that they know everything about you based upon the fact that you have an R or D behind your name. Now, I'm not in politics. You are in politics, so that matters far more to you than it does to me. And so my question to you would be, how do you dispel the myth that because I'm a Republican, you know everything there is to know about my positions on everything?
I think it's a great question. That's, obviously I'm new to politics, so that's something I'm learning myself. But what I've gathered is that I have to get ahead of the curve and really show what my message is and what I stand for. And it's digging in the deep issues and letting people know where my stance is. And it might not align with the typical Republican stance, but it's being able to connect with people and send messages out to people. Hey, I am a registered Republican, but here's what I stand for. Here's what I believe on all issues, even in the ones that don't matter on the city level. Just let them know as a whole what type of person I am and what I believe, and that I'm pro-life and what I believe in and as a person. And it kind of
well, we have a Democratic governor who's also pro-life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I supported John Bell, voted for him as well.
Yeah.
And I know him, and I think he's a great guy. And to your point, I think nowadays, or for me personally, how I get past the R is connecting with people like yourselves and just in the community in general, and let them know, hey, here's who Jordan Piazza really is. And when they ask me questions, giving them an honest answer on where I stand and not giving them the general, here's where Republicans stand. Here's what the Republicans want me to tell you.
Right.
Here's where I personally believe on every issue. And there are some issues that are out there that I'm sure that I align with the Democrats on, but that's me being genuine and me being real. And I think that's what I'm hoping will resonate with people and help some Democrats understand, okay.
Can you be genuine and raise money at the same time as a Republican? I mean, I'm just being pragmatic and honest.
And I'm laughing because it's a great it's such a truthful question, especially in Louisiana. I mean, they talk about dirty politics, and I can't speak on the past in terms of I've never done this before, so I never have. But I know that I'm not going to sit with anyone and lie to them just to get money. One advantage I have is that I have a lot of business contacts, and my dad set the groundwork for me, knowing a lot of people. My dad knew so many people. I mean, he was back in the 80s, in 90s, he was good friends with the governor, the president at LSU, the athletic director. I mean, Phil's was the place where who's
right.
were. And I say that because I always tell people that my dad was kind of like the unelected mayor. Because anytime you need something, you just call him, he got it done. But that was an era before cell phones existed, social media existed. Now when all that's here, it's not the same.
Right.
And so I say that because, I want to be genuine with everybody. And so I'm not going to, if someone's not going to donate to my campaign or donate or support me because I'm not lined up as a Republican, or they want me to lie to tell them what they want to hear, they're just not going to get that from me. They're going to hear where I stand. And I think, it definitely will cause some challenges in fundraising. But I don't want support of people that don't genuinely believe in me. And the heart's got to be in the right place. And I wish we didn't have to raise any money to run. It's just the world we live in.
Right.
I wish we could do it just on the people themselves and not have to run ads and not have to try and to explain to people, why you shouldn't vote for the other person. 'Cause
right.
I don't plan on engaging in dirty politics and mudslinging and any opponent. That's not my MO. But I do think there will be some challenges fundraising. But I also think that people, I hope, and what I've learned so far is that, people meet with me have a different expectation, and then after we talk, they're like, "Man, this young man has really, done his homework per se, and he's ready and he's genuine." I mean, that's what I like to be. I like to be very genuine with people, and sometimes it's being blunt. And that's a difficult conversation to have. I was telling my guy that's helping me in my campaign the other day, I was like, "Man, honestly speaking, if I'm able to get elected and run an office, there's probably a lot of people that don't like me because people don't like change, and change has to occur in this city, and that's just the bottom line. And that's the only reason I'm considering is that I'm newly married to the state, that I want to have a family, and I'm concerned with the direction of the city, but I'm also not leaving the city. And so that's why I decided to get involved. No one else, I started this conversation in July, June, July, and I've reached out to numerous politicians that I thought were going to step up to the plate and want to take this role when none of them do, and that concerns me. And I'm also not one that's going to allow status quo.
Is it that they don't want to step into this role, or is it that they're reading the tea leaves and don't think that this is the right time to run? Because people want to win.
Of course.
They don't just want to run.
Yeah.
They want to win.
Absolutely.
And perhaps they're thinking that this might not be the time when they can be most successful.
I think it's a combination of both, to be honest. I think some of them, some of the people that are there, particularly people that are termed out in the council or in other political careers, I think they fear that there's a lot of work to be done, and they just might not be up for the challenge. I mean, they might just be tired, and I respect that. Or they might have other things going on in their lives, career-wise, other paths, and that's fine. But also, to your point, I think that I think that rhetoric that we have that we have an incumbent mayor in a primarily Democratic city, you can't win. I think that rhetoric is unhealthy. I think when it's known that our current mayor, who I voted for, her likeness, through the city or expectations aren't great. And I know that from some polling that we've done, and just talking with residents and business people. But knowing that something's got to be done, and that's what bothers me is that you're right. A lot of people say, okay, well, the odds are against you. There's no doubt. But if a voice has to get out there and say, you know what, things have to change. And we've tried. We hoped 4 years she would make some changes, and then we don't see that happen. We kind of see a regress instead of progress. We got to make some changes. And so I think people are, like your point, people want to win. And it's not about winning to me. I've told everyone I talk to, I said, listen, at the end of the day, if I don't win, if the younger generation, like myself, begin to get involved in the government, that's a win for the city. And that's what I'm trying to get out to the youth. It's like, man, we have to get involved. We are the future of this city. We're fixing to have kids. I'm fixing to have kids hopefully one day, and my brother has kids, and my sisters, and all my friends have kids. And it's like, man, they're all fearful. Where's the city heading? We have to have kids in private schools. It shouldn't be that way. And these are tough conversations, and it has to be addressed, though. And so, I'm not one, like I said, that stands for status quo. I'm not going to sit back and say, okay, well, we've got an incumbent mayor in a Democratic city who's running as a Democrat. I'm not going to beat her, so I'm just going to stand down. That's like to me, that's very dangerous for the city, because whoever the next mayor is, even if it's her, again, change has to occur. And so if me running brings some ideas to her, or the next mayor who does get elected, or, it gets other people in the room, it's still a win, because I think the city is acknowledged without saying that, hey, things aren't headed in the right direction, and it's time to make a difference. And so, to your point, there are some people that are standing down because they don't want to. They're afraid of losing. But to me, it's not about winning or losing the election. It's about the city winning or losing, and it's losing right now. There was a poll the other day, and I think Forbes or USA Today, and it was talking about the best-run cities, and Baton Rouge was number 66 on the list as the best-run city, for major cities. But it was 144th in the same line, 144th for the quality of life in the city. But one column over was the per capita of a resident, and we were number 20. And so when you think about that for a second, we're in the top 20 in the United States per capita for residents. But yet the quality of life is 144. How does that even make sense? So it's saying, hey, we got the money, but we don't provide the lifestyle, and so that's alarming. And I can't, I'm in business, and I tell people all the time, I'm better suited staying where I'm at. I'll make a lot more money running businesses than I will getting into politics. But if no one else is going to do it, or no one else that I believe is qualified to do it, rather, then I'm going to put my name in the hat and hope that I get some support and make some changes. And I'm not trying to make this a 2-3 term or lifelong deal. My goal is to get in there, put a plan together, and honestly create a succession plan.
Nobody ever does.
Yeah, right? Yeah, true. True.
Nobody. They always, I'm just going to go in, I'm going to hit it, and I'm going to get on out, and I'm going to go do something else in my life. And then 30 years later,
they're still there.
They're still there.
You're right.
I'm sure that you don't think of yourself as a pessimist. You don't come across as a pessimist at all. Do you consider yourself an optimist or a pragmatist?
Optimist.
Okay.
For sure.
Just define that optimism for me, or help me to understand that optimism.
For the city particularly?
Yeah.
Or just me.
You as a person.
My outlook. I'm always trying to, I find myself to be very outgoing, very energetic, and so what I've learned, coming from a family and being the youngest, I learned that I have to. Especially, I've had a lot of loss, in terms of my dad died, and then before my dad died, my grandmother died, who's my last living grandmother, and then after my dad died, one of my best friends died, and then my grandfather died, and then my best friend's girlfriend died, and this was all like in an 18-month period, and these are people that are really close to me, and so after these losses, I had to deal with this. I mean, and it was kind of growing up quick. I mean, I had to. It's not normal for someone to lose that much that quick. And so I went through some, rough phase of depression and all that. And when I came out of that, I realized, hey, life is short. And so you have to look for the positive in life. And what I've learned about the city, and this is what the outlook I try to have, is that we've got, besides the great food, the great culture, our people are great in the state of Louisiana. I mean, you can't find our type of people anywhere else in the world. And when I say our type, outgoing, friendly, Southerners, I mean, I've gone to other states. I get offended when I go somewhere and I say, hey, how are you? And people don't respond.
Nobody speaks.
Because here it's like you always acknowledge one another. Absolutely. And I get offended, and they don't mean it rudely. Yeah. It's just not how they are. And so
I think that's starting to go away, because I have a 25-year-old son, and he asks me all the time, why do you speak to everybody? Because that's the way we were raised.
Absolutely.
You speak to everyone.
It's the kind thing to do. And so with that outlook, I think just knowing what the city has to offer, and knowing, seeing past the front lines, and knowing deep down that the city's rooted with, the great University of LSU, the great historic Black university on the other side of town. I mean, we've got so many great things in this city that how could you not be optimistic and happy about what's here? I mean, people try to say, oh, the city's, it's got crime. It's got, everywhere's got that. Of course, I mean, let's be honest, it's got blight. Everywhere's got blight. But we got to do a better job. But when you look deep down and you take everything off the surface, this city is unbelievable. And, it's the capital city. We got the governors, all the state buildings here. I mean, there's so much here. And so I've learned that we can, and I learned this from personal experience. I used to be a pessimist. And I realized that, hey, that attitude isn't getting you anywhere. You know, no one wants to be around people that are like that. People want to be around people that are motivating, that are positive, that are outgoing, that see the light at the end of the tunnel, that can ensue hope in other people. And so, what I try and do is inspire people and show them, hey, you know, the outlook that you have to have has got to be a positive one, because again, it's like you talk about with service at a restaurant, people feed off your energy, and if they feel that your energy is on a negative view, well, that's going to become what their view is. And so you have to paint, okay, well, you know, we're going through a tough time right now, but let's look at the positive through this. And then, well, how can you possibly find any positive? Because there's positive in everything. You know, we're alive today. That's a blessing, you know, and I think we take that for granted. And so having gone through all the trial and tribulation, there's little. I mean, look, there's people who've gone through way more than I have, but just the little that I experienced in my youth, you know, when I was younger, has prepared me to take a different outlook on life and be more optimistic about the future, and just the fact that, hey, every day is a blessing, and every person you come across is divine, you know, and there's a meaning for why that you cross that person's path, and you can make an impact on that person. You know, people I work with, for example, that come through the restaurant, I mean, and the bar, and just in the past, like, we might not cross paths again, but I want to make an impression with everybody, and I'm not going to do that if I'm negative, you know, and people don't want to be around you know, someone that's not smiling, someone that's not happy-go-lucky, and I've been that guy that, you know, you can. I'm like, I wear it on my face. You know when I'm mad, you know when I'm happy, and you know when I'm sad.
Right.
And so people don't want to be around me when I'm not. They know, don't talk to him right now. You can see it on his face, like, walk away. And I don't like that, you know. And so that's when I decided, hey, you know, I've got to change my outlook on things. And my wife has been a great support. You know, getting marriage is such a beautiful blessing, you know. And she has been so helpful on, you know, all these tough times that I've gone through, some different things. She's been able to, you know, to help show me, hey, look, it's okay, like, there's good coming out of this, and a lot of times that's tough for people to see that. You know, I always say God will bring you through hell to get you to heaven. You know, it's actually a T.I. has it in a song that he sings, but I believed it. You know, and that's one thing I've learned is that, you know, you will go through through hell. You know, you will go through some trial and tribulation, but it's just a challenge that God's setting forth for you to make you stronger in the end. He's not going to bring you through anything you can't handle. And so, as far as being optimistic, I just think that outlook in life is going to be a key factor in how successful you are. You know, and if you want to be successful, you have to be optimistic. And even when the odds are against you, even when it's showing, hey, you're not going to do well, you can't win this. Okay, no problem. But let's not talk about negative. Let's talk about positive. What can we do? What's the good that can come from this? And focus on that, and you can make some big impact.
I've lived here all my life. I think I know Baton Rouge fairly well, at least certain aspects of it. There are parts of it that I'm sure I could grow in my knowledge of. People, media in particular, likes to frame the distinctions within Baton Rouge geographically. North Baton Rouge versus South Baton Rouge. Livingston and Ascension Parish versus the southeastern part of the parish, Central and Zachary versus downtown Baton Rouge. When really, as I read that, they use geography because they don't want to say race. Baton Rouge doesn't have a geography problem. Baton Rouge has a racial problem.
Absolutely.
And it's not just a matter of primitive racism. I don't like you because you're white. I don't like you because you're black. It's economic and it's systemic. As Mayor President, what's your plan to shift the racial divides that exist within our parish?
It's definitely a topic that I've been, doing a lot more research on. I know it exists. It's something that I think has unfortunately worsened over the last few years. But I think it's something that needs a lot of attention. And to your point, it definitely is gotten worse, and something has to be addressed. And as Mayor President, my hope would be, I know it's going to be a challenge. In terms of, it's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. It's not going to be something that's going to happen in my first year, second year. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of effort, and a lot of boots on the ground with a team to really bring us together. And how you do that, and some of the ideas, I see is is really giving North Baton Rouge the attention it needs. Just like South Baton Rouge has the attention, and South Baton Rouge, for example, St. George is crying, hey, we want a school district. Well, North Baton Rouge has its own concerns, and what I think the issue has been is I think the mayor and the council have not worked well together, personally. This is my observation. And I say that because every district has a representative on the council, and the mayor should be working hand in hand with that council representative to go in their district, not just talk about it, but go in their district and talk to the residents and figure out what's going on, and figure out what's going on, the issues are, and then put an action plan on how we're going to let North Baton Rouge know, hey, you are one of us. We win together, we lose together. If you're suffering, I'm suffering. And if they're happy with I'm not happy till the whole parish is happy. And so to answer that, I've got some different ideas, but I don't want to say too much too soon so that my opponents, take on it. But I think what a lot of it is really getting on the ground and really addressing these problems and holding people accountable. Because I think, to your point, what you said earlier, it's I watched a show last night on Netflix. It's called 13th, and it's about the 13th Amendment, and it talks about essentially how the prison system grew with Richard Nixon and Bill Clinton and all these different presidents that have put these policies in place, and is a very enlightening, powerful message. But at the end of the day, it was basically another word. Criminal was another word for racism.
Yes.
And it's something that I was not as aware of until I saw this episode. And so I say that because what I'm learning. And I believe we have prison issues here as well, but we've got to work harder, especially because we're in the South. We've got to work harder to let the residents and citizens know that that although racial inequality might have existed, and look, some of this we can't control because it's our ancestors, right? In terms of our elder generations, like. They were treated poorly. Let's talk about African Americans. Like, they lived it, they experienced it. So nothing I'm gonna tell them is gonna change their mind because they know how people were. They experienced that, and so we've got to work on our generation and work with the African American community. And I say it because let's be honest, North Baton Rouge is an African American community, and we got to work with the business people and the residents because what it is poverty and non-poverty, and it's not fair. And it only makes the city look bad, in my personal opinion. Like flying into the Baton Rouge and seeing North Baton Rouge that way is like, it's embarrassing. It breaks my heart because it's like, why are we neglecting this area that was when the whites lived there? We were all about it. But now that the white community has moved to a different part of town, we want to forget about it. Well, that's still in our parish. And these are still our residents. Whether they were here then or whether they weren't, doesn't matter. These are our people. And what I think some general things that have to happen, I think we got to hold people accountable. And by people, I mean the slumlords, the people that are renting these houses for nothing and not taking care of them and letting people live in this condition. We have a responsibility of government to hold some standards, to get these businesses to say, hey, if y'all are going to build here, we got to have some stricter guidelines and afford these people the same thing that we have over here. Why can't we? It's having those tough conversations of, hey, like, we're not just going to accept the fact that that's a lower income area and just let it. This is East Baton Rouge Parish from the north to the south, and we've got to be equal. And we understand that there is a median, income divide. We get that. So not everyone can afford the same as that's a known. That's everywhere. But doesn't mean that they got to lack resources. They got to lack attention or lack any of those
grocery
things.
stores,
anything, everything. Like there's no reason.
You can't go to the grocery store in most of North Baton Rouge, and that's problematic. And I had a conversation with a manager of an Albertsons 20 years ago.
In North Baton Rouge?
No.
Oh, right here on Government?
Right here on Foster and Government.
Government, yeah.
And I asked, why are there no Albertsons in North Baton Rouge? At the time, the next Albertsons was in Baker, and then up in Zachary. But what I consider North Baton Rouge is different from what most people today consider North.
Right.
Everybody thinks that Florida Boulevard is the dividing line.
Right.
Well, when I was a kid, Florida Boulevard wasn't the dividing line. Airline Highway was the dividing line, and it has slowly moved more and more till now it's Florida Boulevard. At one point, I guess it's going to be Government Street. But my question to him was, why was there no Albertsons in North Baton Rouge? And I said, there are people there.
Yeah,
why would you not put a store in North Baton Rouge? And he said that the demographic model didn't fit within Albertsons' scheme of doing business.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that's code. There are too many black folk here and not enough white folk here, and so we're not going to invest in this area. Now, I don't know how to get past that.
Of course.
So how do you perceive the role of the mayor president as being able to shift the tide and things like that?
Oh, and I think it's having those conversations with those people like Albertsons. And, hey, if you want to be in our city on College Drive, you have to be okay with being in our city on Plank Road, because money is green. Revenue is revenue. And it's not about black or white. It's about being able to provide the essential resources for all. And if we're not good enough for you over here, then you're not good enough for us over there. And to answer your question, and so as mayor president, I think you have to engage on a higher level. So if the store manager is telling you that, then it's time to go talk with executives that want permits to go build other locations in the city, or take a step back and go to local. See, I'm all about local business. Go to like the Rouses and those people and say, hey, how can we work together? We know this isn't a typical model, but how can we work together to help us? You be part of the solution to get in the areas, because they need this as well. To what you just said, it makes me, I'm shaking my head and I'm laughing, not laughing comically, laughing because that is so arrogant for that guy to say, because, and he's probably right, it's not him, it's talking about what they were told. Right. But look at Raising Cane's. I mean, they're on Plank Road.
Yes, they are.
I mean, Tony's Seafood, which a lot of people don't realize, Tony's Seafood out there, the amount of revenue they do is, for considered a restaurant market, is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't believe they could put another market anywhere else in the city and do the same amount of revenue. And they aren't cheap. Okay, so my whole point being, there's money to be made.
Yes.
And the fact that we're neglecting and the business aren't. So I think the businesses aren't going there and the resources aren't there because no one on the mayor president's office is having these conversations saying, hey, I'll help you get permit to get over here, but I'm gonna need you to help me over here. And whatever that looks like is the conversation we have to have. And having all those that's what drives me crazy. Is you have these. I'm looking in this year at the business report, and it's showing the top commercial deals of the year, and all it is the top 7 of the top 10 are just apartment complexes being bought and resold. That's not development.
Right.
That shouldn't even be in there. We spent all those years helping redevelop downtown, which I respect, because I think downtown, to have a capital city, we need to have a strong downtown. I think the last 4 years we've gone backwards, but point being, we've learned that if we put our resource and dedication and focus to making something happen, we can do it. That's common. And so we've got to put more effort into North Baton Rouge and resources and figure out, hey, what do they really need? And if you're saying Albertsons or not particularly, they need better grocery stores, better access to resources. We've got to stop.
At this point, it's a grocery store.
A grocery store.
I don't care what the brand is.
Right.
A grocery store.
And how that doesn't happen, is the fact that it hasn't happened, to me, is lack of leadership. It's just neglect. And I hold the council responsible for that in that area, and to a certain degree, because they are a representative of the constituents. But let me tell you something a little further. I also don't agree, and I don't want to get too much into this, but I also don't agree with the pay that our council makes, because they are paid so little money to try and represent a district. They have to keep another job. They don't. That pay is somewhere between 14, 16 grand a year. We expect someone to represent our district and fight for it day in and day out when they have to have, this is a side job. It's a side hustle. That is insane. That, they need more. That should be their full-time job, like it is most other councils in the country. Because that's when you get the real ground roots people that are going to go in there and make a difference in their community when that's all they have to do. Because then their constituents can hold them accountable. Hey, man, you're in my district. I'm paying, the city tax dollars are paying you. The only job you have is to make sure this district gets better. Why is there not a grocery store here? And then that's when they get to have the conversation with the mayor's office. And so one of the things, that I want to do, as mayor is work. When I said work with the council, I had this idea, and I don't look. These are ideas. Doesn't mean they all can come to fruition. But my idea is to there's 12 councils, once a month, spend a day in each district, with each councilman, and driving up every down the street, figure out, hey, what are the problems? Not just having conversations, but actually going and driving in these communities, talking to people and saying, hey, what's going on over here? Like, what can we help you with? Hear the good, the bad, the ugly, and then when we figure out what we need, it's going to reach out to those mega stores like a Walmart or Albertsons, whoever it is, and say, hey, can we have a meeting? Because Baton Rouge has a lot to offer. Look, people forget when College Drive Walmart opened, it was the number one Walmart in the nation for a couple years. When Chili's opened right there on the College Drive exit, it was the number one Chili's for years. Point being, this little small town of Baton Rouge has a lot to offer businesses.
Right.
And all it takes is someone that has that mindset and understanding it's not easy, but we have to have these conversations. We've got to let me show you the roadmap of why you can put Albertsons in North Baton Rouge and it not be a problem. The whole, it's dangerous. No, it's not any more dangerous in North Baton Rouge than it is on College Drive, because theft is everywhere. The reason that theft is that way stems, in my opinion, from an educational issue, which is a whole nother issue. But it's not the area town. It's because we're not putting the resources to our schools.
Okay, you brought up education twice.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine.
I think it's a big topic.
It is. But directly, the mayor president doesn't have an impact in the management of public schools.
Correct.
I grant you that there's a bully pulpit that the mayor president has and can speak on issues, but the mayor president does not have direct administrative responsibility over the public school system. So, in that you have unofficially announced your candidacy for mayor president, exactly what do you see your role as mayor president with regard to improving the public school system?
So yes, you're 100% right that there's no, the mayor president has no direct responsibility. However, I think as mayor president, and knowing that your public schools are failing, particularly in the state, that they're performing the lower end, when you have a parish right next to you that's at the top tiers, I think it's time that you have to have conversations with the people that do make decisions and the people that are in power. I know the mayor's president's office is in charge of the Head Start program, and they're also in charge of the Cradle to K program, which I think is something that has got to be addressed, because, to your point, the mayor president's office are not education experts. So why are we even trying to? That's where all education really starts, is the youth, obviously, and they're trying to help the parents get the kids, Cradle to K, and then the Head Start program. But point being is that, I think that shift's got to change, and where those programs rather get turned to educators or the education system, because they're the best ones that are best qualified to help tell us, because they're not effective. It's very evident that they're ineffective. And I think if we had checks and balances, what are we holding our metrics on to show if those programs are effective? But I think further, my understanding is that our current mayor is not having frequent conversations with the superintendent and the school board, not having frequent conversations with the school board in general. And when you're performing low, whether you have a direct responsibility or not, you have a responsibility to your citizens to be having those conversations and asking tough questions, because a mayor can go to the governor and the legislator and have those conversations on, hey, here's the changes we got to make. How can I help as mayor facilitate that? Because we cannot continue this direction. Although I can't do anything personally, I can't allow these schools to continue to perform the way they are. I can't allow our teachers to be paid this little pay. What can I do to help you? Because it's working one parish over with less residents and less income. They're having better programs. Where's the gap? How can I help y'all? Who do I need to get in touch with? Who do I need to connect you with? I can't do it myself, but I want to be involved in the conversation, because these are my residents. And so I think that's why I keep saying it. Yes, it's not direct responsibility of the mayor's office, but the mayor has a responsibility as the people's leader, per se, of the city, to make sure that they're asking, just like if a parent's upset, the parent doesn't have any responsibility to go talk to the school board and like that. They're going to have way more restricted access than a mayor would. A mayor is going to be privileged with some more access to have conversations that need to be had and spark the debate and spark the conversations and provide assistance wherever they can to make sure it's getting to the right people. And that's the responsibility I feel as the mayor is yes, it's not my responsibility, with the school board. I don't have a direct overview. However, I should be having frequent conversations with them. I should be having meetings with the governor if needed, or the legislator, or my representatives, or whoever it is in the state that's going to help make these changes. When they built Lehigh is beautiful, okay? Nothing against the school. I think we could probably save a few $1 million. I don't think it needed to be as glamorous as it was. I mean, look at Woodlawn that they built, okay? Woodlawn's not glamorous that they just rebuilt, but Lehigh's going to, the STEM schools are going to build all these crazy glass structures on this huge piece of land. Like, it's in my opinion, there's just been a lot of decisions that have been made, and some of them at the city's behest, because these schools are being built and contracts are being bid out, and it's irresponsible, in my opinion, and it's an irresponsible use of city funds and state funds too, because rather than, we probably could have built 2 schools for the price that they paid for one when it came through all the expenses, and that's what frustrates me. When I was in Texas and you see schools, they're all just cinder block buildings. They're nice, don't get me wrong, but they're not fancy, because in the day it's just an education place. They don't need to be fancy. Let private schools be fancy, because people are paying for that. But public schools, the problem is we have so many public schools, elementaries particularly, that are outdated, that need resources, and someone's got to talk about it. And I know they have these conversations, but it's in our area. I mean, and so when you say, like, as a mayor president, why you get involved, it's not really your area. It is my area, because it's in my zone.
I'm not asking why. I'm just asking what you think your impact would be. Because I tend to agree with you that because of the office of mayor president, you would have doors opened to
Correct.
you that John Q. Public might not have opened to them. But I'm just wondering what your philosophy would be as to how you could negotiate in an area where you really don't have direct say
Absolutely.
As to what's going on.
And I think it's that's something that we're still doing more research on to figure out. It's there's not a answer best fit for that. I think it's going to be a lot of trial and error, to be honest. I think it's going to be trying a lot of different things, but that's the key word, is that we're trying. So it's having these, getting these doors open, to your point, having these conversations with, representatives and the legislator and the governor, and, figuring out, okay, what do I need to, how do I make this easy for you to do? Do I need to go get private funds? Do I need to go secure? What can I do to help you so that you can make this happen? Because at the end of the day, I can't make it happen. You have to make it happen. But I'll be the liaisons if I need to be. I'll put effort and forth because it's in my city. I care about the city. I want to see this get better. Tell me where the disconnect is. And, I think it's like the guy at Shawshank Redemption. He wanted to get more books for his library. And he wrote a week a letter, and it took however long to get the books. At some point, they're going to respond, and they might tell you, hey, mind your business. But at least the citizens know that, hey, we have a mayor that's trying,
right,
day in and day out. It's really got to be a top initiative. Even though it's not the mayor's responsibility, they're trying to make things happen, and it's having conversation. I mean, I tell people all the time, Baton Rouge, we're not reinventing the wheel here. There's other cities that are our size, our population, our demographic per se, one way or the other, that have had these issues.
We're constantly being compared to Austin, Texas. Is that a fair comparison in your mind?
Not in my mind, no.
Okay.
I don't. I've been to Austin one time, so I'll be honest on that. But just my one time visiting, I don't see a whole lot of comparison there. I know. I tell you this though, when I was there, what I saw that I don't think is as bad here, and maybe it's more spread out here, maybe it's more contained there. But the homelessness, I mean, I know it's a problem here, but there it was horrific. I mean, it was just everywhere but in one corner, and here we've got areas that have some, but I don't think it's as bad here as it is there. But I don't think it's fair to. I don't think you compare cities. It's tough to compare us to Austin because you got to look on the state level. There's incentives in Texas on a state level that Louisiana doesn't have, and so they're when you're comparing.
So there are some in media,
unfair.
and I won't call their names. I'll do it another time. But there are some in media who constantly want to compare Baton Rouge to other cities of its comparable size in the country. But I agree with what you just said. You can't just look at population size and say, well, because they have the same population, then they ought to be on the same level. A lot of that has to do with how state government is run and the relationship that exists between state government and local government. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the throwing out of statistics. Well, they have 67% of this and we only have 37% of the same thing. You're trying to make a point without really delving deeper into the issues as to why one city is one way and one city is another, and it has a lot to do with state government. Let me ask a couple other questions because we're running short of time.
Okay.
As a model, what do you think of the city-parish form of government?
That's a loaded question. And again,
I'm not crazy about the fact that Zachary has a mayor that I can't vote for, but the people of Zachary can vote for the mayor
of Zachary,
of my
Baton
city.
Rouge, yeah.
And Central is the same way, and if it's successful, St. George will be the same way. I understand the city-parish form of government. I think that there are deficiencies within it. My opinion. What's your opinion?
I think the examples you just gave show that there is a problem, and Central, Zachary, Baker, and St. George now are trying to find the solutions to these problems because so they did so by creating their own little cities and having their own mayors. And to your point, yes, there are a lot of people that are, hey, why are you voting for the parish president? And should that role be separate? Should be a mayor of the city of Baton Rouge that only the Baton Rouge votes for, and then a parish president that's over all of it, and maybe it's separate roles. But I think the whole plan of government has got to be, reviewed. And I say this carefully because, you can lose a lot of support by saying this mainly from people that work in the government. But, time has changed. And that's one thing I'm trying to say about the youthful generation getting involved. The way they operated 50 years ago is not the way we operate now, and it's not going to be the way we operate in the future. And so I think we have to look at the government and the way it operates and figure out where the inefficiencies are and what needs to be changed and what makes it fair to all. And, St. George, I believe, this all started because they wanted a school district.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. And we wouldn't give them a school district.
Absolutely correct.
And had we just had that conversation and figured out a way, hey, we hear you. We got to talk with the governor.
And what does it say about a people that they are so vested in having control of a school district that they are willing to form an entire city in order to get it? We can't get it any other kind of way.
Yeah.
Well, if this is the only way we can get it,
right,
then we're going to form an entire city.
That's what they said.
In order to do that.
That's what they said. Hey,
what does that say about their attitudes about the East Baton Rouge Parish school system?
No faith in it. I think they don't believe in the East Baton Rouge Parish school system, and they also think it says that education is important, to them, important enough to where they'll go make their own city so they can have a school.
But if it's that important, why can't we come together to make the consolidated school? Why do we have to break up into several different independent school districts instead of having a better consolidated school district?
And that's my point exactly, is that this all could have been avoided by having that conversation or one like that. Hey, how do we give them what they want, but also do it for the whole parish to make it beneficial for the whole parish? And instead they said, oh, nope, you can't have one because you're not your own city. If you want your own school district, you have to become your own city. Okay, well, that's what led them. So I think a lack of addressing their concern, you almost calling their bluff. Like, oh, hey, you want your own school, you got to become your own city. Like they weren't going to do it trying to buy time. Well, guess what? It motivates someone that has, a community that has a lot of people, a lot of revenue, and a lot of kids, and they'll make it happen. And so I think it's just a part of the broader conversation that's got to be happening. And again, it's on the state level because, hey, we don't make the rules. The state makes the rules in education. So don't be mad at us. Be mad at them. But at the end of the day, the mayor's, president's office, and I'm talking back to Kip, could have had these conversations where we figured out a common ground. Hey, how do we fix it? This model's not working for the whole parish. Mm-hmm. That's why Zachary wouldn't do what they would. That's why Baker's done what they've done. And that's why Central's done what they've done. How do we restructure this, governor, or whoever it is, so we make it fair for everybody? So because the reality is the geographic of the city has changed, and it's evolved.
Yes, it has.
I mean, you can start with North Baton Rouge, like I said, years ago. That's where 40, 50 years ago, all the whites, and it's just slowly moved, but it's keep moving. and we have to move with it. The city does, you know, and the school districts and all that's got to change. And that's what I'm trying to say is that, you know, we got stuck in these ways and we're not willing to adapt, and that's what's got us in the problems that we face today that are really wasting taxpayer dollars and our time of all these people worried about stuff that really shouldn't even be being discussed, because the concern is legitimate and needs to be addressed, and there needs to be a better plan of, hey, like, what I think the city does very poorly of is we're very reactive instead of proactive. We're not planning for 5 years from now. We're playing catch up right now. Like infrastructure is a great example. We're so far behind the rest of the country on the infrastructure that we're playing catch up, and so we're applauding ourselves. Oh, these roads are getting fixed. Well, guess what? These roads are great for right now, but they're not ready for 5 years from now. And in 5 years from now, we're playing catch up again. It's because we're not putting that, hey, what's the 5, 10, 15-year plan look like? How's the city going to change again? Let's look at the history, see what the trajectory is going to be, and let's put some things in effect before it happens, so when it does happen, we're prepared. And I think that's it's just a very small-minded type of government in my opinion, and it's kind of like Baton Rouge has grown. I think it exceeded that. You can't deny it. It outgrew whatever it was ever expected to be. There's no denying that. I mean, it's written, but we have to adapt, and we got to stop being. That's why we get such negative, media, is because we're so far behind. I think what Austin might do that the city of Baton Rouge has done is they're planning ahead. That's a good example when you want to compare, but. To your point earlier, that's a state level deal, I believe, when you compare other cities. But I think the city as a whole, and maybe even the state, but I think the city's got to do a better job of planning ahead so that you avoid the St. George problems before they ever exist. Because how could you not say that area was going to one day be, have enough residents to have some concerns? I mean, they built U Club 15 years ago. They started building University Club out there on Nicholson. I mean, did they think that was the only development that was going to go out there? Nothing else was going to come? Of course not. I mean, there's a history of when Tony's Seafood opened, that was the part of town, and then it's slowly moved. But guess what? There's not a whole lot of open space anymore. So pretty soon the city's going to be filled, and we got to figure out the plan. And so I think those talks have to be had with government. I think it's the responsibility of the Mayor President's office to address the concern, because I think St. George could have been avoided. In terms, I think if the mayor would have been a little more proactive. I mean, it only won by 1,500 votes. And so that says a lot. But I think if the mayor would have been a little more proactive, and I criticize her for this because I supported her, so I feel responsible. She'd have been more proactive instead of waiting to the 11th hour to start running ads, and she'd have done more and got out in the community and talked to people. I think she could have got those 1,500 votes. We wouldn't even be having this conversation today because St. George would have been killed. But they'd be having another conversation on the back end on how we get them what they want so they don't try this again.
Okay. I'm really running out of time because I have some places. Yeah. No, I'm enjoying this conversation. I really am. I want to ask you one other question. Okay. Because it was in today's paper. The governor is, to my way of thinking, reneging on his first term initiatives to change the industrial tax exemption program. ITEP, ITEP. They are, the state legislature is debating changes that will allow businesses that apply for ITEP exemptions and are turned down by local municipalities to appeal to the state legislature in the hope that the state legislature will grant them the exemptions that the local municipalities deny. And the governor seems to be in favor of that. When it was the governor's plan initially to give local municipalities more say in the ITEP program, which I thought was the right thing to do. So I'm personally frustrated that the governor has taken this position. As a future candidate for Mayor President of East Baton Rouge Parish, what would be your opinions about the coming shifts to ITEP? Yeah, what I think, assuming I hadn't read the article yet, but I would assume that the governor's get a lot of pressure, from these companies probably, but also from constituents, because the industry does bring a lot of jobs and a lot of revenue to the state. However, I think the bigger issue, and just some conversation I had earlier this week with some different people, is that the system is flawed in the local municipalities of how those are granted or denied. In terms of specifically, they're flawed because
the process is reliant on individuals who might not be the best qualified to make these decisions. So it's not just up to the mayor's office; it's up to, I think, a board is how it's applied.
The sheriff has a say. Mm-hmm. The school board has a say, and so. And these are the entities that are directly affected. The sheriff is the chief tax collector for the parish.
Correct.
And schools, you're talking about the need to build new schools.
Absolutely.
If you're exempting businesses and industries from taxes, then we have to constantly go back and get millages and tax ourselves a different kind of way.
Absolutely.
In order to provide the facilities that you have. So from my perspective, you have the right people at the table.
Yeah.
But businesses saying, hey, we're not getting the tax exemptions that we've been getting for the last umpteen years.
Right.
We want to appeal to a higher court.
Government. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think the challenge is that I think the sheriff's office, the school board, all of them, their arguments are correct. Hey, like, we need those funds. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, I understand when the governor's position is probably, hey, we need the economy to continue to grow because it's better for everybody. There's got to be a happy medium where at some point, and I say that.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I want to see you find that happy medium.
It's challenging, but there's got to be open dialogue. To your point, and look, not every company has to apply for ITAD. That's something we were talking about the other day. Like, there's companies that come in that they don't want that. The tax relief, they don't even have to go through the process. They can just open up and do what they need to do. But the ones that do want it, obviously are the ones that are getting denied. And I think we have to have open dialogue and really show them the statistics. Hey, here's why we need the funds. And maybe there's a different route on how everybody is happy. Maybe it's a different approach, and I'm sure other cities have this and other parts of the country that we can both be happy, and it might be, hey, we're going to come, but we're not going to open as big because you're not going to give us the big tax break, but there's a way where we can still get funding, and I think it's a bigger conversation, but I think trying to go above them and have the legislature and the governor get involved, I think is ultimately unfair, because I think at the end of the day, it becomes our problem, and so the
governor got out of the business, but now he's being he's coming back into the business to shift the business, and I've got concerns about that.
And I think a lot of people do, and I think it's got to be addressed. And again, where's our mayor's stance? Do you know what our current mayor's stance is? I mean, where is she at on this?
I won't speak for the mayor.
Yeah,
but I do.
I didn't know if it was in the article as well. I was asking.
No. No. The article. I was reading the business report, and they did not go to the mayor for a statement. At least not in this particular article. I have enjoyed this conversation, and the time went by much. I have a 12 o'clock meeting. It's 5 minutes to 12.
Oh, I didn't even know.
But I have truly enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise.
I really appreciate you coming by and
sharing
with us, and I hope you'll come back again.
Absolutely,
soon.
I'd love to come back.
Thank you for viewing. Thank you for listening. We'll be back again next time.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.